so much for tuning in to the very first episode of Meeke. We've got an exciting show for you today. In fact, we're talking about the band that's sweeping the nation. And I'm not talking about the Beatles. I'm talking about the so-called Brat Ban, where our kids are not being allowed into many of our favorite establishments. We've got guests today on both sides of this issue, so we should get started. I'm here, you're here. Most importantly, the Lord's here. So let's glorify Him in all that we say and do. Meeke starts right now. The dinosaur, the fanny pack, blue eyeshadow, maybe even the station wagon. What do all these have in common? Well, they're extinct. They're things that we do not appreciate anymore because they were trends. And as you know, hopefully, if you're still wearing your fanny pack, you won't be too upset that I said that. But these were trends. These were things that we thought were really neat at the time, and then we move on from that. So what am I saying? Today's show is about the Brat Ban that's sweeping our nation. A lot of people are catching on to this and saying, you know what, maybe kids are a nuisance. Maybe kids are a bother. So have they gone the way of the fanny pack or the way of the station wagon? Are we, even in the Christian community, following after the world and saying not kids should be seen and not heard, but are we saying kids should not be seen at all? There was a time when the larger family was all the rave and everybody was praying for the Lord to multiply their family. And in fact, to have a lot of kids was a show of God's favor, that God was blessing your life. Well, now people are saying no to children. They're delaying having kids, and they're choosing not to have kids at all. What's happening in the church? Why are we following after the world? Aren't we called to set the standard? Aren't we called to be salt and light? I would say yes. On today's show, we have guests on both sides of this issue, those who want to see kids in their place, still drawn to the Lord Jesus, still trained up in the way that they should go, but in their own environment. And we have those who would say, you know what, kids need to be with their parents. Their parents are their ultimate teachers. God has given that child to that parent. They need to be in service. Maybe some call it family-style worship. We're going to survey that. But before we do, can I just invite you to look at the scriptures with me? Let's go to the book of Matthew. Matthew chapter 18, beginning at verse 1. It reads this way. I love this. It says, "At that time the disciples came to Jesus, saying, 'Who then is greatest in the kingdom of heaven?' Then Jesus called a little child to him, set him in the midst of them, and said, 'Assuredly, I say to you, unless you are converted and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself as this little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever receives one little child like this in my name receives me.'" There's several things we can pull from this. One, children were present. As Jesus was ministering to their parents, children were right there. And I would imagine, even as he's dealing with those tough topics, talking about things like adultery, talking about things like divorce, children were right there. The other thing you see from this is that God used the innocence of a child to illustrate what's required to enter into his kingdom. So if God was willing to esteem children to show what it takes to enter his kingdom, who are we to shun them and to push them away? Jesus says something else that's very important. If you receive, let me read it. It's verse 5. It says, "Whoever receives one little child like this in my name receives me." It makes it very difficult for me to support establishments that want to push kids away, because I think that this trend has bigger implications. I don't think it's just about families wanting to enjoy a quiet evening, although I understand that. I think it's a show of the culture and the direction that we're moving in. And I think that what God calls good, man is now wanting to call bad. I really do. And so we're going to look at that today. We're going to talk about it. Hopefully you'll stick around for the entire show. I don't know if your opinion is going to be represented here, but I'll tell you, the most important opinion is the Lord's. What does he say about children? What can we glean from him? How can we honor him in all of the decisions that we're making? We're going to discuss that today, right here on Meeke.